Hello everyone, welcome to this session on deploying a full stack application on AWS, and the application would mimic something like Netflix. Okay, so I welcome you all to this session. In today's class, our focus would be to basically see how an application can be deployed on an architecture or cloud like AWS. So we will not be getting into coding today. What we will be discussing is if we have an application at hand and if we have defined some features that we want, how to enable those features using a cloud infrastructure like AWS. So that is something that we would be going ahead with today. Okay, all right, guys. So let's get started now. So first things first, let's discuss what we are going to do today. So we are basically going to discuss the website architecture on cloud, which probably Netflix will have when they have, deployed their application. So let's get started. So let me just share my screen with you guys. Okay. So guys, what we will be doing today is something, on the lines of this. So what we are going to configure is we are going to have a URL, a URL like this, which every one of you will be able to go to, and you will be able to see the website that we will be deploying on the cloud. Okay. So for example, let's take the example of netflix.com. You will see when you go to netflix.com, you're automatically routed to the Netflix website, right? You do not know where that server is hosted. You do not know, about the nitty gritties of how it is working, but all you know as a user is if I go to a particular URL, I can see the website on the browser. So similarly, we are also going to do, the same thing today. I told you the output, but I'm going to tell you what goes behind, making an architecture like that possible. What goes behind you going to a URL and then being able to access a server is something that we are going to discuss today. Okay. Now, if you talk about, the cloud architecture at a very high level overview, this is what we are going to accomplish today. So from the security point of view, all our web servers, all our databases that we are going to deploy today are going to exist in a network which cannot be accessed, by internet. So this network, this particular rectangle that you see over here, it will not be able to access by the internet. That is, you and me from our computer, we will not be able to access these servers. Okay. Then we are going to create a network which will be accessible by the internet, right? And that is where are going to have a component like load balancer, right? What does a load balancer do and everything, I'm going to explain you in a while, right? But this is the network architecture that we are going to deploy today. So we are going to have a part of a network which will not be accessed by the internet. We are going to have a part of the network which will be accessed by the internet, and then we are also going to have, a component which is going to be a URL with which we will be able to access our servers. Okay. Now there is a very important thing to understand over here, and that thing to understand is, how basically, uh, you know uh, why security is important when you are dealing with applications which exist on the internet, right? For example, you can have all the security in the world for your application. It could be password encrypted, right? It could have, key pair which can be, attached to it, but some way or the other there's always a hack to, access some machines, right? So how we as cloud architects, how we as application architects can ensure that something like hacking, something like phishing, something like, somebody else taking over your application does not happen when you are dealing with the application which is, available to the whole wide world, right? People like you and me, probably we will not be able to understand, when something is password encrypted, Like for example, your laptop, if it's password encrypted, people like you and me cannot go ahead and get inside your system. But there are security researchers which exist out there. There are people who are technically so sound that they can actually hack into your system, even if you have a password attached to it. Now, when you think about it as an architecture's as an architect's mind, the first thing that you might want to solve is not giving access to your system to anybody on the internet. Okay, now what does that mean? So let's say if somebody is able to crack the password of a server, what if I don't give the access of the server to that person itself in the first place? So in that case, he will not have access to the server itself, and he will not be able to crack the password also. Okay. Now, how do you stop someone from accessing a particular computer or a server, right? What if you cut the internet connection to your computer? If someone is trying to hack your computer and that person does not have physical access to your computer, right? How will he hack it? If you cut the internet connection off of your server, how will someone go ahead and hack it? So that is my point over here. So to solve that, or to basically be relevant to what I just said, what we are going to do is all our applications, all the website servers that we are going to have, all the databases that we are going to have, we are basically going to deploy it in a network which is not going to have internet access. Okay. So now the next question that you might ask is, then how will we access a network which does not have internet access from outside, right? For example, if you go to netflix.com, you're able to see that website, right? Why are you able to see that website? Because you have, or that website, or the server which is having that website has internet access, correct? So how will we ensure that we do not have access to our servers, but at the same time, if somebody wants content from our servers, we are also able to deliver that on the internet? Is something that we are going to solve using this cloud architecture. Okay. So we are going to have a component which is going to be called as an AWS Elastic Load Balancer. Okay, which is going to be in a network which can be accessed from the internet, and then we are going to have a URL which is going to point to this load balancer, which we are going to have deployed in a network which can be accessed by the internet. Okay, now you might have multiple questions right now. So before we move on to the next slide, I would like to address those questions. But if it is about how will we do it, I will be telling you in a while. But if anything is not clear with respect to what I've just told you, please let me know and I'll be answering all your queries. Any questions? Any questions, guys? So Ehsan is saying, so we have to get to both network and also to the server. So no, Ehsan, what I meant was that our website is going to exist on these orange icons that you see. These are nothing but servers that we are going to deploy today. All right. And these servers will be deployed in a network which is not going to have internet access. Okay, I will show you how that is possible using cloud. But these will be basically part of a network which will not have internet access, so that people from the outside are not able to access them, right? And at the same time, when we go to this URL, we would want to access these servers. And this URL will obviously be on the internet, right? So it might sound a little confusing because you guys do not have background on cloud right now, but it will be more clear as we move along. Okay, so everyone has an idea about what we have to accomplish today. So Devashish is saying customers use website by NAT gateway. No, Devashish, that is wrong conceptually what you are saying. In order to use the server, which is second rectangle, Asan is saying, yes. So this second rectangle is basically going to be a network which will not have internet access. So Ganesh is saying difference between cloud and server. So Ganesh, cloud is nothing but the company which has infrastructure on it, which has their own infrastructure, right? When I say infrastructure, they have millions of servers on their side. Now, what you can do is on cloud, you can deploy a server, right? So on cloud, when I say, so let's say AWS has millions of servers with them. Now you tell AWS that I want one server. So that server, you are basically using it on AWS cloud, right? So cloud is nothing but the company who owns millions of servers, right? And you as a customer, what you do is you go to their website and you request for one or two or 100 servers out of those million servers to use. Okay, so that should be the difference between cloud and server. Venkata Raghunathan has a question: how safe are our projects in AWS? So it depends on Venkat how well you deploy your architecture. If you have a sound knowledge of what you're doing, then I don't think it should be a problem of how safe your projects are on AWS. Vignesh is saying, in general, how many VMs are required on real-time scenario to host a service or website like Netflix? Well, it doesn't depend on the number, Vignesh. For example, let's say you have a 16 GB machine, let's assume, and I have an 8 GB machine, and I'm talking about RAM. So the kind of applications or the kind of concurrent applications that you can run on your machines is obviously more than what I can run on your machine since you have a 16 GB machine, right? So how many VMs are required? It all depends on what is the kind of configuration that they're running on each servers of theirs. Okay. And it also depends on the kind of traffic, which is coming on to their server. So let's say their application that they run, for each customer, their application needs around 16 to 20 MB of RAM. So in that case, you can do the maths that let's say if they have an 8 GB machine, right, and they have let's say around 100,000 users concurrent at every time who are watching the Netflix platform, what are the kind of servers that they would need? Okay. Hari Krishna is saying if there's no network connection, then how we are going to access them? Exactly, Hari Krishna, you are bang on. So there is a way to do that, and I will be explaining it to you how you can do it. Nagaraju is saying not accessible server we are keeping in DMZ cloud or on-prem. So Nagaraju, everything is going to be on cloud. Nothing is going to be on our system or on premise, right? So that is something that we are going to go ahead with today. So Amit is saying when you say not accessible by network, it can still be accessed by LAN. Yes, Amit, it can be accessed within the network, but it will not be able to access from outside the network. That is something that we are going to discuss. So Ayush is saying, can I use this link from any device? Which link, Ayush? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Ashish is saying, do you mean all the servers in the second are in DMZ or inside firewalls? Ashish, everything is going to be on the cloud, right? Everything is going to be inside firewall. So everything that you deploy on cloud has a firewall attached to it, right? But we are not going to control it via firewalls. We are basically going to convert it via, networks. So we're going to understand that how. So Ganesh is saying if they don't have internet connection, how they're going to work. So Ganesh, I'm going to show you in a little while. Uh, okay, so Vijay is saying server down means Vijay, server down basically means that server is not working. That means that is what server down means. So Raju is saying, thanks for the introduction. Can we start the lesson? It's 8 p.m. already. So Raju, as soon as the questions stop coming, I will be going to start the class. But it's important to clear everyone's doubt, right? I cannot just go ahead. Devashish is saying which databases big companies like Netflix use. So Devashish, let's hold on to these kind of questions. If there is anything that you want to understand from what I've just told you, please go ahead and ask. If not, we can just take these questions at the end of the session as well. Okay, so Anaga is saying if you want to access these servers from second rectangle, uh, then how can we access? So Anaga, I'll be telling you that in a minute. Ujjwal is saying how can you auto scale? I'll be showing you Ujjwal that also in this session. Uh, Ujjwal is saying auto scale on CPU metrics or how we can use business or other metrics. So Ujjwal, it usually is the CPU metrics, but let's hold that question because not everybody will be able to connect to what you're saying. Okay, guys, so if there are no more questions, let's go ahead and start. So what I'll be doing is, first of all, let me go ahead and show you how a network like this is possible, where you do not have internet connection in one part of the network and you have internet connection in the other part of the network. Okay, so first of all, guys, for people who are completely new to cloud, let me give you a brief intro as to what you have to do. So first of all, you have to go to a website called aws.amazon.com. Okay. Now, what is this website? This website is basically a cloud provider. Okay. This AWS is a company which gives you the service of cloud. Okay. Now, what is cloud? Cloud is nothing but it's a company which rents out uh, systems. For example, right now you are watching this session probably on a laptop or a desktop or a mobile. Okay, so let's assume you're watching it on a laptop or desktop. Now that desktop or that laptop is owned by you, right? So now let's say tomorrow you want to launch a website. Now, your system configuration has around 16 GB of RAM, let's assume, and you have around i5 or i7 CPU. So the kind of website that you're launching will be used by a lot of people, obviously. Now, when people use that website, obviously, since it's hosted on your laptop CPU percentage will go up because your laptop now has to process a lot of requests. And soon your laptop will completely be used. It'll have 100% CPU usage, it'll have 100% RAM usage, right? And then you will have to buy another laptop so that you can distribute the traffic which is coming onto your laptops for hosting your website. Okay, but if you have to buy another laptop, that basically means you will have to invest around 60 to 70,000 rupees again, right? And then only you can divide the traffic among the two laptops that you will own. Now the problem over here is, let's say money is not a problem for you. Problem over here is that it will take a day or a two for your laptop to come. Second of all, you will have to manage everything, that you will have to have a 24/7 internet connection working at wherever you're working from, right? You will have to have 24/7 electricity so that your laptop is always charged, it's always working, your internet is also working if electricity is required to the modem, right? So all these things you will have to ensure. And while you're managing all these things, you are actually not able to work on your application itself, right? So that is exactly why a cloud provider was introduced, or a cloud provider as a business was introduced. Now what a cloud provider does is, it says that if you don't have money to buy a server, or if you don't have money to buy a system, what you can do is, I have millions of systems with me. You can ask me for the configuration that you want, and I will give it to you. You don't have to buy it from me, you just have to pay me the rent for using it, right? And that is what the cloud platforms are. So cloud platforms, they give us systems to rent from, right? And you can rent them on a per hour basis, right? And the per hour basis price is as low as 3 or 4 rupees per hour. Okay, so that is how cheap servers are for you when you take it from cloud. Apart from that, cloud also gives you the guarantee of having 24 by 7 uptime, which basically means they will take care of their electricity needs, they will take care of your internet needs, they will take care of ensuring that the hardware is not getting any kind of fault. For example, let's say your laptop, which from which you're hosting the website, right? Tomorrow some short circuit happens in your laptop, and suddenly your website is now down. So these kind of problems will not come if you're using cloud servers, because they guarantee that they will ensure that their hardware is up and running 24/7. So that is why companies use cloud. That is why companies are using cloud platforms for deploying their applications. Why? Because they do not want the headache of buying hardware, maintaining it, ensuring the infrastructure around it, right? So that is what cloud is. Now, having said that, what we are going to do today is, again, we are not going to use my laptop to host a website. I'm going to use a rented server from AWS where I'm going to deploy my website. And we are going to deploy an architecture like this using the cloud resources, using resources which will be given to us on rent. Nothing is going to be owned by us. Okay. Now, you would have a question over here. All right. So, if you are saying that they will charge me on a per hour basis, so if I want to practice this on my system, will I be charged? If I want to go to AWS and I want to deploy, let's say some servers, will I be charged? So, not at all. So, whatever we will be doing today is not going to cost you at all. So AWS as a cloud platform, it gives you a very good deal for all its new customers. What it says is, when you first sign up on AWS, you get access to a free usage that AWS grants you. So AWS says if you're launching a server which has 1 GB RAM and one core of CPU, then I'm not going to charge you for it. You can launch it for free, right? And we are today going to try and be under that free tier and deploy our application so that everyone who is there in this session can plan it, can actually run their application, can try it out, whatever you are trying in this session, and understand how cloud usually work without even getting charged for a single rupee. Okay. So this is an introduction to what cloud is, guys. So any questions that you have with respect to what is cloud, you can ask me right now. If not, let's go ahead and then I'll show you how you can use cloud to deploy servers. Any questions? All right. If there are no questions, let's move ahead. So first of all, you'll have to sign up on AWS. I'm going to skip that step. I'm pretty sure everyone knows how to sign up or create an account on a website. Do that. And when you do that, you can then sign up or you can just sign into your AWS management console. Okay, so let me just quickly log in. And when you have signed up on the cloud, this is how your dashboard is going to look like. This is how your dashboard is going to look like. These are all the different kind of services that AWS offers, and we are going to make use of some today to do what we have to do. All right, great. So now that we are on this management console, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a service. So when you want to deploy any kind of server, if you want a machine from AWS, the kind of service that you have to make use of is called Elastic Cloud Compute, right? So the short form of this is EC2. So you will have to make use of a service called EC2. So EC2, you can choose, you can go to all services under compute, you will find the EC2 service, just click over there. And this is the management console that you will get. Okay. Now my job is to deploy a server. I will do that. But first I need the network that we were talking about since the past 15-20 minutes. We need the network ready first, where we will be deploying our servers. Okay, so the EC2 service is for deploying your servers. Now for getting your network or deploying a network on cloud, there's again a service, and that service is called VPC, which is called Virtual Private Cloud. So we are going to type in VPC, and you will get isolated cloud resources kind of a service over here. Just click over it, and here you can deploy the kind of network that you want. Okay, so now let me brief you about what we are going to do. So first of all, whenever you talk about networks, guys, networks, uh, the word network is a very can be a very big architecture, but networks have subparts to it as well, which are basically called subnets. So if I have let's say your office network, so you guys must be working in offices, you might be in colleges. So your office will have one network. Then in that one network, you will have, let's say, a network for the HR department. You will have a network separate for the developer department. Then you will have a separate network for, let's say, your leadership team. So everyone will have different access to the different part of the network, and every network will have its own access. Okay. So first of all, let's deploy the big network. Let's deploy a network for our whole application, right? And our whole application, I'm not restricting it to say that this whole network will have internet access or not. This is the overall network that we are deploying right now. And inside this network, then we are going to create subparts where we are going to uh, uh, define the functions that each subpart can have. For example, some parts will have internet access, some parts will not have internet access. So that is something that we are going to do now. Okay, so first let's go ahead and create a network. For example, let's create a network for your office. So let's call this network as Netflix. Okay, this is where all my resources are going to be. So I am going to name it as Netflix, and let me give an address. So everything that you deploy on a network has an IP address. For example, right now, if you're accessing the internet, your computer has an IP address. Why? Because you are connected to a network which is called internet. Similarly, if you are connected to your office network, you also need to have a separate IP address which will make you recognize on that network. Okay, so now what we're going to specify in this IPv4 CIDR block is the range of IP addresses that I'm going to have. That is, let's say if your computer connects to my network, what is the kind of IP address which will be assigned to you? So let's say I specify over here that anyone who's trying to connect to this network will have an IP address which will look something like, let's say this. So this is the range that I'm specifying over here. So here in this range, so your IP address will always begin with 10.1, and then this number will change according to what your network configuration is. So this is the range that I'm specifying over here, and this range is where my application is going to be deployed in. Okay, so let's click on create. And what you have now done is you have created an office network, or you've created a network for your application. Okay, now inside this network, I'm going to create subparts. Okay, because some resources I want to give internet access, and some resources I do not want to give internet access. So let's see how we can go ahead and specify that. Okay, so I have created a network called Netflix. Now inside this network, let's create some subparts. So for creating the subparts to a network, what you do is you create subnets. Okay, so I'm going to click on subnets. So let's create some subnets for my Netflix network. So I'll click on create subnet. Let's say what I'm creating right now is for a network which is going to have internet access. So let's call all the networks which will have internet access as public, and all the networks which will not have internet access as private. Okay, so let's call this network as public. And when you're deploying servers in AWS, you can deploy it in many data centers. Okay, so right now what we are dealing with is the Oregon region. So Oregon is basically a place in the US where AWS has many data centers. And how many data centers are there? uh, there are almost 4 data centers that you can choose from. So let's create, a public subnet in 2A data center. Okay, and let's call this public subnet as 2A. And this subnet will be deployed obviously inside my main network, which is Netflix. So let me select that, right? And it is going to be deployed in the 2A data center. And let me specify the IP address range, which is going to lie obviously between this particular IP range that I specified earlier. This will be the IP range where I will have, my resources will be assigned the IP address from. Okay, so let me specify it as 10.1.1.0/24. So these numbers that you see /16, they basically denote a range. 20, if I specify something called as /24, that's a smaller part of a range which is /16, right? For example, if I specify, so just assume it like this: if I specify /16, there are going to be around 65,000 IP addresses that I can give using this range. Okay. Now, when I specify something as small as /24, I will have an IP range of around 256 to 256 servers. Okay, so this is what this number means. So more on this you can actually understand later, because if I try to explain you how IP addresses, how ranges work, it will take a little more time. But and it's easy to understand. You can just Google it out and you will understand it. But for your understanding, I'm telling you that this range is a part of this particular IP range. Okay, and this range we are assigning to our public 2A subnetwork. Okay, so let's create it. And mind you guys, I'm not defining the features of this network yet. I'm just defining that I'm creating these inside my main network. Okay, so I've just created public 2A, which is basically a part of my Netflix network, and it is deployed in the 2A data center. Right, similarly, let me create one more subnetwork. Let me call it as public 2B. This is going to be a part of the 2B data center. It is going to also have internet access. It is going to be a part of my Netflix, what do you say, it will going to be a part of the Netflix network, right? And the range is going to be 10.1.2.0/24. Okay, let's go ahead and create it. Okay, so now what we have done is we have created two subparts in the data center 2A and in the data center 2B. Now let's go ahead and create private subnets which are not going to have internet access. So let's create them. So let's call this as private 2A. It's going to be part of my Netflix main network. It's going to be a part of the 2A availability zone. And this is going to basically have this IP range. Okay. Now, similarly, let me create a private 2B as well. /24, and let me go ahead and create it. Okay. So, okay, there's a small change over here that I'll have to do. So once you have deployed it, guys, you can verify if it has been deployed in the correct data center or not. For example, private 2A has been deployed in 2A data center. That is great. But when we talk about public to B, it has again been deployed into a data center itself. So what I can do is I can delete it quickly and I can create public to B once more. Okay, so let me create public to B, and VPC is going to be my Netflix network. It's going to be part of my 2B network, and this is going to be 10.1.2.0/24. Okay, so now I have private 2A, I have private 2B, I have public 2A, I have public 2B deployed, and these should be now in the respective data centers. If I've named it 2A, it's in 2A. If I've named it 2B, it's in 2B. If it's in 2B, it's in 2B. And 2A is also there in the 2A data center. Great. So I have my network deployed. Now let me go ahead and define their functions. So what I've decided is my public subnets will have internet access and the private will not have internet access. Okay. So what I'm going to do is first I need internet connection to my network. So how can I give internet connection to my network to these public subnets? Let me go ahead and tell you. So for example, if you need a Wi-Fi at your home or if you need internet at your home, what do? You contact an internet service provider. They basically bring a modem to your home, and then that modem you connect to your Wi-Fi router, and by connecting to your Wi-Fi you're able to use your internet, right? Similarly, if I want to give internet to my network, what I'll have to do is first I will have to go ahead and request for something called as a internet gateway. So let me create an internet gateway. Let me call it as Netflix network internet gateway. Let me create it. Okay, so it has been created, and now I can just see it in a list. So I've created the internet gateway. Now I will attach it to my Netflix network. So here you can see, you can find something called as attached to VPC. Let's click over here. Let's select the VPC that we want to connect to, which is Netflix. Let's select it and let's click on attach internet gateway. Okay. So my internet gateway is now attached to my network. Okay. But still the resources that are going to be in my network, they will not be able to access it. The reason for that is whenever you deploy a resource in a cloud, it is not directly deployed in the main network that you created. It is always deployed in a sub part of the network, which is basically nothing but the subnets that you created. So the subnets that you have deployed, you have to configure them to connect to this internet gateway. Okay, now internet gateway is part of your network, but your subnets are not knowing about that internet network. So uh, in a simpler way, if I were to tell you, you have Wi-Fi at your home, but you are not connected to your Wi-Fi. So your laptop does not know if it can connect to that Wi-Fi or not. Okay, so what I'll be doing now is I will go ahead to something called as route tables. So route tables basically specify which IP addresses can connect to a particular resource in the network and which IP addresses cannot. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you guys how the route table is basically going to be configured. So right now, there is one route table which is automatically created for your Netflix network. Let's call this route table as the internet route table. So whichever subnets or whichever part of the network are going to be connected to this route table will have internet access. And let's create a route table which is called non-internet route table, right? And let's also deploy it in the Netflix network only. So this route table that I have created over here is going to have all the resources which do not have internet access. Okay. So to this non-internet route table, let's go ahead and attach the subnets which will not have internet. And to this internet route table, let's attach the subnets which are going to have internet. Okay. So first let's attach subnets to the internet route table. We'll click on subnet associations. And here, as you can see, there are no subnets attached to it as of now. We'll click on edit subnet associations and we will attach all the public subnets where we need internet to this route table. Okay. So now the route table have been attached. The subnets have been attached to this route table. And now what you will do is you will specify a route to the internet gateway in this route table. And then what will happen is all the subnets which are connected to this route table will be able to see that internet gateway. Or in other words, whichever laptop is at your home will be able to connect to that Wi-Fi. Okay. So let's click on edit routes. Let's click on add a route. And here, let's say everyone in this network should be able to connect. So when you have to say everyone, you give a destination or IP address like this. Okay. So all the IP addresses which are there in this subnet should be able to connect to my internet gateway, which is this, right? And let's click on save routes. So now what have we done? Let's revise. So we connected two subnets to this route table, which basically I named them to be public subnets. And these public subnets, I have given a property to them that they can connect to the internet by using an internet gateway. Okay. Is everything clear till over here, guys? Any questions that you have? Okay. So Samiran is saying, are you using the free tier account? Yes, Samiran. So this is not a free tier account, Samiran, but all these settings that I'm doing right now, they're all going to be, a part of, what do you say? It is going to be a part of the free tier. So you don't have to worry about it. Whatever I'm doing, you can also do, and you will not be charged whatever you have to do. So Ehsan is saying, even if you are located in a different region in the world, is it still 10.1 IP address? So Ehsan, the network that I've deployed, it's basically deployed in the Oregon region. So this is the region that I'm working on right now. I'm working in the Oregon region. So in Oregon region, the network that I've created, no matter which data center that you connect to, if you are a part of my network, you'll always have 10.1 IP address. Uh, so Nagraj is saying public 2B is not a signed availability zone, so I did that. So Raju is saying clear explanation. Okay, great, Raju. Hari Krishna is saying, did the internet rule table got created the moment we had created an internet gateway? No. So Hari Krishna, whenever you create, a network, automatically a default route table is created for you, right? But you can go ahead and create more route tables which can be attached to your network as well. Okay. Ujjwal is saying, how can we connect the public and private subnets? Good, very good question, Ujjwal. I'll tell you in a little while. So Hari Krishna is saying how to know that which CIDA ranges we can use. So you can follow the same formula which I told you, Krishnan. When you specify a subnet, an IP range which is ending with /16, that means you are specifying the range of 65,000 IP addresses. Okay, but when you increase the number, so let's say if you give /24, that means now you have reduced your IP address range. So what I've done is I created an IP range which said 10.1.0.0, where 0 and 0 can be anything, right? And then what I did was, while I was creating the subnets, I replaced the third value in the IP address. So I specified 10.1, and instead of 0, I specified a digit. So that digit is now going to be fixed, and only the zeros can be changed, right? So with that, I specified what ranges are going to be a part of the other subnet that I've deployed. So you can, if this is confusing for you, you can use the same ranges that as I've did. and it should be not a problem for you. Uh, okay. Ujjwal is asking how can we communicate between the two subnets. Ujjwal, like I said, I'll be explaining in a little while. Shri Ganesh is saying how to put data in subnet. Uh, Ganesh, please be with me. I will be explaining in a little while. Ashish is saying, can we limit the number of IP addresses that can connect to public networks? Yes, Ashish, you can do that. So right now what I've done is I've specified 0.0.0/0, which means each and every IP address, can connect to the internet. If you want only specific resources to be able to connect to the internet, what you can do is once you have deployed your resources, you will get their IP addresses. Just specify that IP address over here, and only that IP address will then be able to connect to the internet gateway. I hope that answers your question. So Hari Krishna is saying, are these CIDR ranges region specific? So whenever you deploy a network, Hari Krishnan, in AWS cloud, it is always specific to that particular region. So right now I have deployed it in the Oregon region, right? So all these data centers in Oregon region can basically, have resources which are going to be a part of the network that I have created. But let's say I go ahead and I choose, let's say, the Mumbai region, right? So Mumbai region will not be able to deploy a resource in this network. I hope that answers your question. Okay, any other questions, guys? Can we move forward? Any other questions? Okay, if there are no questions, let's move ahead. I hope everyone is on the same page, guys. Anywhere, if you feel something is not clear, let me know. All right. So now that we have one network which is going to have internet with us, and the other network which is not going to have internet with us. Why this does not have any internet? Because I've not specified any connection to the internet gateway, and I will also show it to you in a little while. Now, a very good question which Ujjwal asked me was, let's say I have some resources, in the public subnet, okay, and I have some resources in the private subnet. So how can they communicate with each other? And if yes, how? So let me answer that question for you, Ujjwal. So when you create route tables, automatically, the route table that you have created, it has a rule in it which says all the IP address ranges of that network, they should be able to connect to the local resources which are there as part of that uh, route table. Right? What that means is the internet route table, it has two subnets, right? It has public to A and public to B. So when I say that these IP addresses, if anyone is requesting anything from these IP address ranges, right, they should be able to connect to all the resources which are part of the subnets which are connected to this route table. In other words, anyone in this network through this rule, what I'm defining is anyone in this Netflix network, if they have been assigned an IP address, they can interact with the resource which has been deployed in the public subnet. Okay. Similarly, if you have a look at my non-internet route table, here also I have defined that anyone who is a part of the Netflix network can connect to all the local resources which are going to be there in my private subnet. Okay. So this is what I have specified from my router. Does that answer your question, Ujjwal? Is it clear to Ujjwal and to everyone that all the resources that I'm going to deploy in the Netflix network, they will be able to communicate with each other because they are part of the same network. If I were to give you an example of this, let's say inside your home network, your laptop is connected to your Wi-Fi, right? And your mobile is also connected to your Wi-Fi. So if you want, your mobile and your laptop can communicate with each other even if your Wi-Fi router is not connected to the internet. Okay, if you remove the internet line from your Wi-Fi router, and you will not be able to use the internet, that is for sure. But what will now happen is, if you two devices are connected to the same Wi-Fi router, you will be able to talk to each other. So let's say on your system, you create a shared folder, and you try to access that shared folder from some other laptop which is connected to the same Wi-Fi. You will be able to interact with each other. Okay. Similarly, all the resources which are a part of this network, the Netflix network, they will be able to interact with each other. So Hare Krishna's this means we can access public subnet from private subnet. So Hare Krishna, yes, the resources which are there in the public subnet, I can talk to them, I can do a two-way communication with them, right? But if I want to connect to the internet, I will not be able to do it from the private subnet. Okay. So Ujjwal is saying once repeat. Okay, Ujjwal. So I'm saying that in my route table, I have specified, or this rule is automatically specified, which says anyone who is connected to this IP range, they can talk to all the resources which are there, deployed in the subnets which are associated to your route table. For example, this is the non-internet route table, and this will have the private subnets or private networks connected to it. So anyone from this IP range, where is this IP range? This IP range is nothing but your Netflix network IP range. Anyone from this IP range can connect to uh, your resources which are a part of your private subnets and can talk to them. But only the resources which have these IP address will be able to talk. No other resource. Is this clear? Okay, guys, is this clear to everyone? Right? Are we all clear with what we have done as of now? So we have created a network. We have created some subparts of the network. Those subparts, some parts have internet access, some parts do not have internet access. But irrespective of the fact whether they have internet access or not, they all will be able to talk to each other. Is this clear with everyone? Okay, Hari says yes, he's clear. Thanks, Hari, for the kind words. Others, are we all clear with whatever I've just explained? Please be a little responsive on chat, guys. Otherwise, I will not understand if you guys are actually able to follow me or not. Is everyone clear? Ganesh says he's clear. Thanks, Ganesh. Ashish, yes. Uh, Aradhna, yes. Thank you, Aradhna. Nagaraju says local network. Do we need to create any firewall rules? Yes, Nagaraju. So there are some firewall rules that we can create, but we have not got to them as of now. Just let me know if whatever I've explained to you is clear. Praveen says yes. Okay, so thank you all for the confirmation. I can see a lot of you have said yes. Thank you all. Now what I'll be doing is, so I think I'm not connected the subnets to my non-internet route table. Let me go ahead and connect. So I'll just click on actions. Sorry, I'll go to subnet associations of my non-internet and let me connect the private subnets to it. So private 2A and private 2B. Let me connect. Okay, so now I have the two route tables configured and I have my network configured in the fashion that I've just explained to you guys. And now one final setting that we will have to do is we will go to subnets. Now the resources which can talk to each other on the internet or which will basically have internet access, they will need a public IP address as well. If they don't have a public IP, be outside from the Netflix network will not be able to talk to them. Okay, so how do we configure our resources which are being deployed in the public subnet to have a public IP address? This is a small setting that you have to do. So you will be clicking on your public subnet. You will be going to actions. You will have to go to modify auto assign IP settings. Click on enable auto assign public IP for address and click on save. So now all the resources which are going to be deployed in public 2A
are going to have a public IP address. Public IP address is basically an address which can be reached out from the internet. Okay. All the 10.1 IP address ranges that I specified earlier are basically going to be a part of the local network, that is the Netflix network. But when we talk about the internet, internet is also a network, right? So internet also has its own IP addresses which are given to people when they want to connect to each other, right? So for example, if I am connected to the internet, if I go ahead and see what is my IP address, this is the IP address that I have, right? And this IP address is basically given to me by my internet service provider. So similarly, uh, if I want to deploy a resource on AWS which is connected to the internet and to which I want to connect to, it should have this public IP address. Okay. So that is what we have configured, that all the resources in my public 2A will have a public IP address. And even in public 2B, I will specify that they can have a public IP address. Okay, great. So now all the resources that I'm going to deploy in public 2A and public 2B will have an IP address. And now we can simply go ahead and go to my service EC2, which we talked about earlier, which is going to rent me servers. I will go to that service and let me deploy some servers now. So what I'll do is I'll click on running instances and let's click on launch instance. Okay. So the moment you click on launch instance, now let's see what are the kind of options that we see on the screen. So now when you want to rent a server from cloud, the first thing that you need to decide is what is the kind of operating system that you want to run on that server. Okay. So let's say I want to run a Linux server. So let me select Ubuntu. I want to run the Ubuntu operating system on my server. Okay, so I'll select it. And now it will ask me what is the kind of processor, what is the kind of RAM do you want for your server. So here's a list that you can select for. Now, if you want your server to be a part of uh, free tier, you can see this green uh, highlighted text over here which says free tier eligible. Select that. It will give you one core CPU and it will give you 1 GB of RAM. Okay, let's go ahead and click on next. Next thing it will ask you is what network do you want to deploy this resource in. So I want to deploy it in my Netflix network, right? And since this is going to be a public uh, instance that I'm deploying, because first what I want to do is I want to configure my server that I'm deploying on AWS, and later I'll shift it to a private network where we will not be able to access it from the internet. Okay, so I am going to deploy it in the public subnet as of now. And what I'm going to do is rest, I'm going to leave everything at default. I'm going to click on next. Now it will ask me what is the kind of space or what is the hard drive space that I want for my server. So when you deploy a Linux server, it has minimal requirements. So a Linux server with 8 GB of RAM will work. 8 GB of storage space will work. So I'll just click on next again. Uh, and now this is the place where people were referring to, will it have any firewalls? So when you talk about firewalls, you basically are referring to security groups in AWS. Okay, so my instance will basically, or my servers will be governed by a firewall which is called security group, and I can create a firewall or I can choose an existing firewall as well. So when you create a new network, what happens is automatically there's a firewall which is created, which is basically called the default firewall. So it's called the default VPC security group. Okay. If you select that firewall, what are the kind of things that you can configure over here? Let's see. So first of all, what you can configure is the kind of traffic which is allowed in this firewall. Okay. So right now it says all traffic is allowed. Good. What protocol is allowed? All protocols are allowed. Okay, so we'll have to restrict this firewall in a little while. We'll do that. What port range is allowed? Any port from any traffic is allowed. Okay, and who can connect to this firewall? Only the people who are part of this security group can connect. So this we will have to change, since I want to connect to the server to configure it. So I will have to put my IP address over here in the source. We'll do that in a little while. But for now, this is the firewall that you all were referring to, right? And this is something that we are choosing as default over here. You can create it as well. If you create it, you will again get the same options, but you will have to configure them. Okay, so let's click on review and launch. And now you can just review all the settings that you have done. If everything looks good, you can just click on launch. Now, AWS as a security option, it does not give you a simple password based authentication to your server. What it gives you is a file which you can use to connect to your server. Okay, so that file is basically called a private key file, which you will have to download from over here, right? So I have a file that I already created. It's called Mac Oregon. So I'm going to select that. I already have it on my system. If you don't have it, you're creating it for the first time, you will have to choose create a new key pair. Let me create it since we are doing it over here. Let's specify as Netflix demo. This is the file that I will be using to authenticate to my servers. Once you specify the name, just click on download key pair. This will be downloaded to your system, and then later you can use it to connect to your server. Okay. Now I click on launch instances. And with this, my server has now just been launched. Okay. And I've launched it inside a public subnet. Okay. Now, before I move to the next screen, if there are any questions, I'll be very, obliged to answer them. So let me just check. Balu is saying EC2 is one way of launching VMs. Are there any other way we can launch a Linux instance using AWS services? So Balu, AWS is basically one service which gives you servers. It gives you general purpose servers to launch. But the other services that are there in AWS, they are very specific to the kind of server that they will give you. For example, we are going to make use of a database server today, right, later in this session. So if you want to create a database server, you can create it with EC2 as well, right? You can launch a Linux instance. On that, you can install your server and on your database, right? And then become the database server. But what AWS also gives you the flexibility is that, let's say you do not want to do all this hard work. What you want is a database server itself. So AWS has specialized services in its management console, which basically gives you a server which is pre-configured. And that is about each and every service which is there in AWS, right? So the different kind of methods that you can launch servers, this is the most common method which is used. But let's say you do not want to configure your server yourself. You want AWS to configure it. Then there are different services in AWS which you can choose, which will give you specialized servers. It could be a database server. It could be a web server as well. It could be a serverless architecture as well. So everything is given to you, but it will be pre-configured by AWS. So those are the different kind of ways that you can launch servers. Hope that answers your question. Uh, Altaf is saying, are these steps what we have done will be charged? No, Altaf, these will not be, charging you if you do this, whatever I've done so far. Okay, so Hari Krishnan is saying the default security group we selected, was it specific to the VPC we created or is it default for all VPCs? So it is specific for the network that we created. That was Netflix, right? It is not common to all VPCs. Okay. So Nagaraju is saying the free tier you have created, how many days it's free? It's free for 1 year, Nagaraju. But let me give you a limit as well as to how this free tier operates. So every month you have 24 into 30. That is, you have 720 hours in a month, right? So what AWS tells you is you can run a server for 720 hours in a month for free. That means if you launch one server, if you run it for 30 days and you don't never stop it, you will not be charged for anything. But the game changes when you launch two servers. So if you launch two servers, then the number of hours for those servers are counted independently. So 1 hour of those two servers accounts to 2 hours of AWS counting with the 750 hours limit. In other words, if you launch one server in AWS, you can run it for 30 days. If you don't stop it, it will not charge you. If you run two servers in AWS, you can run it straight for 15 days without getting charged. Why 15 days? Because now for your 1 hour, there are two servers which are running, right? And those two servers have the different uh, pricing which is running on them per hour, right? So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So if AWS tells you that you can run 750 hours worth of servers in a month, 720 hours worth of servers in a month, right? But it depends on how many servers you run. So if you run three servers, then that 15 days time will reduce to 7 days. So it's always a good idea to stop the servers once you're done with them. So if you stop a server, right, in that case, you will not be charged. Right now, the servers are running. So there's also an option to stop them. So the moment you're done with them, just stop it and you will not be charged. So that is how you can be under the free tier. Okay, so Ashish is saying we are able to connect to EC2 via key pair only or other options available. Ashish, by default, you can connect only via key pair, which we downloaded. There's no other option available. Okay. Are there any other questions, guys? Any other question that I can answer for you? Cool. If there are no more questions, let's move ahead. Okay, so now I've just launched a server, right? And this server is now a part of my public subnet, which means this has internet access. So let's see what all things we have available for this server. So let's call this as Ubuntu server. Okay, so this has a public IP address. Great, I can use this IP address to connect to this server, right? It has the private IP. Private IP is basically the IP which is given inside the network. So as you can see, the range is 10.1, which is exactly what we specified, right? It is a part of the 2A data center, which is good. The firewall attached to it is default. So we will have to change the default rules for this firewall. And others you can verify whatever you configured, exactly those configuration you can see for your server over here. Okay. Now what I'll be doing is I will be selecting the security group, which is the default security group. And let me change the settings over here. So first of all, I'll be changing the inbound rules. So the inbound rules of my firewall right now are these. So let me change this. So I click on edit inbound rules. And now, first of all, let me tell the server that only I can connect to it. So I will specify my IP. And as you can see, this is my IP address that has been specified. So only my system will be able to connect to this server. And right now you can see this is the public IP that has been attached to my firewall. Okay. So any kind of traffic from my IP address will be allowed to this server. Okay. So this is the setting that I'm specifying right now. I'll click on save rules and this setting is done. Now this will be changed later when we will be deploying our full stack application. But for now, this is the IP range that I have specified. Okay. Now I'll go back to my dashboard, go back to my server. I'll select the server that I want to connect to. So this is the Ubuntu server. So you will notice I have some other servers, EC2 demo, which have been created over here. So this account is used by a lot of people. So you don't have to worry about the other servers which are being launched. Just select the server that you want to use. So in my case, it's Ubuntu. Now I'll be connecting to it. Okay. So this is the IP address that I'll be connecting from. Let's copy it. And now to connect to it, I will make use of my terminal. Okay. Now here is something that will be different, that can be different on your system. What is different on mine? So I am using a Mac operating system. So I have something called as a terminal, right? So this is a bash terminal that I'm going to use to connect to my server. Okay. Now, when you might be on a Linux, sorry, you might be on a Windows system. So in that case, if you want to connect to your server, you will have to basically make use of a software called Putty. Okay. So there's a software called Putty, which will basically make you to connect to your server, right? So what we basically make use of is the SSH protocol to connect to a Linux server. So this tool, the Putty tool, will help you connect to your server using the SSH protocol. So just click on the first link that you see. You can see it says you can download Putty over here. Just click over it. And here you can download, the Putty version. So you have to download the 64-bit version in case your processor is 64-bit. If you have 32-bit architecture, then you will be selecting the 32-bit version. Okay. Once you download it, there is one more software that you have to download, and that is called Putty Gen. Okay. Download this as well on your system. Now, once you have Putty Gen and Putty downloaded, what you have to do is, you remember the key pair file that you got? This is the Pem file. This is the key pair that you got, and this is only for Windows system that I'm telling you right now, guys. So this Pem file is not compatible with your Putty software. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to convert this Pem file into PPK, and that can be done using this PuttyGen software that you will be downloading. Okay. So how you can use the PuttyGen software? Let me show you some screenshots. So this is how your software is going to look like. You don't have to enter any values in key comment key phrase. So what I'll do is, okay. So this is how your Putty Gen will look like you when you open it for the first time. So what you have to do is you have to click on load. Okay, it will open a dialog box. Select the Pem file that you downloaded. Click on OK and then click on Save Private Key. Okay, what this will do is it will save a PPK format file on your system, and that is basically the file which you will be using now to connect to your server, right? So Pem files are compatible with Linux systems, but Pem files are not compatible with Windows systems when you're using the Putty software. So you have to convert it to PPK. Okay. So with that done, once you have the PPK file, next you will be opening your uh, Putty software. So your Putty software will look something like this. Okay, this is the UI that you will get. So the IP address of your server will go over here in hostname. So this is my Ubuntu server. This IP address will go over here uh, in this dialog box, the hostname. Okay. So once you put the IP address over here, next what you have to do is you have to click on SSH, right? And once you open SSH, you will find something called as auth under it. Click on auth, and then you will get a browse window over here. Okay. So if you click on SSH, you will get click on auth, you will get a browse button over here. Click on this browse button, select the PPK file that you downloaded earlier, and then all you have to do is click on open. That's it. So once you click on open, you and I will be on the same user interface as what I'm going to show you as of now. Okay. So this is the only difference that is going to be there while I am doing this demo and while you will be doing this demo. So first step, you have to convert Pem to PPK using the PuttyGen software. Put the PPK file over here in browse section of SSH auth, and then put the IP address over here by going to session, click on session, put the IP address over here, and finally click on open, right? So now a terminal will open just like this, and then I'll tell you what has to be done from there. Okay. So now what I'll be doing is, let me pass in the command. So this is the command that you will be using when you're on Linux. Okay. So people who are there on Linux, first you have to go to the folder, uh, which will basically have your Pem file. Then pass in this command. So SSH-I basically means the server that you want to connect to. Sorry, the Pem file that you want to connect to. This is the Pem file that I'll be using to connect. And then now people on Putty, you will see a dialog box which will ask you for login as. It'll ask you for username. So if you have launched a Linux machine which has Ubuntu operating system, the username would be Ubuntu. Okay, Ubuntu at the rate. Now when you just have to specify Ubuntu, hit enter, you will be logged in. People on Linux, you have to specify username at the rate of IP address of your server and then hit enter. Okay, so it will ask you whether you trust the server. This will also be the same for people who are going to work on Windows. You have to type on yes, hit enter, and Windows people will be able to connect then and there to the server. People on Linux will find this kind of a warning which will say unprotected private key file. Okay, so you will have to pass in a command sudo chmod 500, which are basically going to change the permissions of your file, right? And then just change it with 500, and this should do the trick. Now pass in the same command, and there you go. I have connected to my Ubuntu server on AWS. So people who will be doing it on Windows, you will also see the screen as you are seeing right now on my screen, right? And this is how you connect to a server which is deployed on AWS. Okay, so let me see if we have any questions. So Raju is saying, is it enough if we stop or it has to be terminated? So Raju, if you are working under the free tier, it is enough if you stop the server, you will not be charged. But people who are not under the free tier, you will be charged for the storage. So the hard disk that is there with your server, it is not deleted if you stop the server. So you will be charged for the hard disk. But people in the free tier, your hard disk space also has some limits, which will be basically available under the free tier. So if you're choosing the 8 GB option, I think if you stop even 2 or 3 servers and don't use them, you will not be charged anything. Okay. So Ganesh is saying, why are you using Ubuntu instead of Windows? So Ganesh, when you are working in production systems, right? When you are basically, even if we let's talk about, the session today, which is about deploying an application like Netflix. So all of them, they use Linux systems only when they are deploying applications, and the reason for that is Linux basically takes up a very few amount of resources for the whole operating system that it has to run. And when you compare it to Windows, Windows takes up a lot of resources to run. Okay, because Windows also has a lot of features. So to minimize the cost of the resources that you're using, every company prefers to launch their applications on Linux operating system, and that is exactly what we are also going to do. Surendra is saying, how can we connect to AWS server through local window or Linux command line? So this is exactly what I have done, Surendra, right now. So I have connected my local machine. This is my MacBook. So I have connected my MacBook to the AWS server using the terminal, right? So this terminal, what I have commands I have passed is going to be the same for any Linux operating system that you use out there. For Windows, I've told you you can use Putty to connect to your server. So I hope that answers your question. So Ashish is saying, can we create different users that allow to connect to EC2? Yes, Ashish. So if you are sound with Linux, now that you're connected to this server, you can do anything with this server. It's now yours. If you want to create more users, you can go ahead and do that. You can do anything with this server now. It's up to you. Okay. Nagaraju is saying Pem file is a secure key or cloud server. Yes, Nagaraju. So the cloud server has given us a Pem file, which is basically a private key. So I don't need any password. If I have this file, only then I will be able to connect to my servers. If I don't have this file, I will not be able to connect to my servers. So it's basically a replacement for having a password, because password generally gets leaked, right? If you are typing in a password, somebody might see what you're typing on the keyboard and they might get to know what your password is. So instead of that, if you have a file through which you're connecting, and given the fact that you are not going to share this file with anyone, nobody else would be able to connect to your server. Okay, so that's why it's a little more secure when you compare it with having a password. Okay, so Mupai is saying security group inbound rules. Can you show once? Yes, Mupai, I'll show you in a little while. Okay, so let me show you the security group rules. Mupai, 1 second. So these are my rules, Mupai. So I have enabled every kind of connection from my MacBook to the server that I've just connected to. Okay, great. Now that we have connected to our server, what I'll do is I will basically make it a web server, and then once our website is ready, we will deploy it in my private subnet, which is not going to have any internet access. Okay. So when you want to create a web server, first thing that you have to do is anything that you want to install on a Linux machine, first you update that machine. Okay. So I'll just type in sudo apt get update. It'll take like a minute to update the machine, or even less than a minute. So it took 10 seconds to update the machine. Now what I'll be doing is, so this is the command that I passed to update the machine, sudo apt get update. Next thing that I'll be doing is I will be installing a web server. So sudo apt get install Apache 2. So this is a web server which is now getting installed. Okay, so I just choose yes. Okay, so web server is now being installed. And after this, we'll do a very cool exercise, guys. So you will be able to see that if I go to the IP address of my server now, so I'll just type the IP address over here in the browser. You can see I can able to access this page in my browser. Okay, but let me do one thing. Let me give this IP address to you guys, and then you can tell me whether you are able to access them or not. So I'll just put this IP address in the chat. Let me know if you are able to access this IP address. Can everybody go to that IP address and tell me whether they're able to access it or not? So Raj says he's not able to access. Okay, Raj. Others? Harikrishnan cannot access. Okay. Okay. Can you guys tell me why you are not able to access it? Can anybody tell me? Okay. So Deepthi has given me a right answer. Others? Nagaraju also has given me the right answer. Raj also has given me the right answer. Okay. I think everybody is on the same page. So yes, guys, because in this firewall that is in the security group, I just specified that only my IP address can connect to it. Okay. Now, if I change that, let's see what happens. So I'll just go to the default security group, which is this. I'll change the inbound settings, and okay, I think I'm not in the right security. 1 second. So let me change these inbound settings, and now let me allow anyone to connect. Now, can you guys confirm if you're able to access your machine or not? I mean, this web page or not in your browser? Okay, Hari can access, great. Nagaraju can access, Altaf can access, great. All right, awesome. So since everyone is able to access now, you can now understand how this firewall basically works. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is, guys, I'm gonna basically go ahead and define a web page over here. So let me show you how we are going to go ahead and define our web pages. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, uh, this is the architecture that we are going to deploy now. So I will have a separate web page for streaming servers. 1 second. So I will have a separate web page for my uh, video page, and I will have a separate web page for my home page. Now let me show you why we are going to do like this. So let me go ahead and open the website called netflix.com and just see what is the behavior. So if I go to netflix.com, I automatically go ahead and get routed to netflix.com/browse. Okay, and if I select the account that I want to use, it's still the URL over here. It's netflix.com/browse. So netflix.com/browse is taking me to the homepage of Netflix. I hope everybody is clear here. Okay, now what happens if I play a video? Okay, so let me play this series over here. So now what you can see is the URL changed to netflix.com/watch, and then you have some numbers over here, which are probably would be the numbers for your video. Okay, so you have connected to netflix.com/watch. 1 second. You have connected to netflix.com/watch in order to get to this page where it is playing this video. Okay, now let me show you what happens when you play some other video. So I'll again click on back. Let me play some other video. So let me play, let's say, this Space Force. Can you still see? It's still netflix.com/watch, and then you have these numbers which are after this URL. So these numbers basically are referring to the video which is playing on this page, but this page is same all the time. The page is always netflix.com/watch, which is basically referring you to this video player. And then to this video player, what you're doing is you're providing this number, which is basically now going to play the video that you are launching over here. Let's see if we remove the track ID, what happens. Okay, so this is the number which is associated to the video that you are playing, right? And this is the page that you're going to. You're always going to netflix.com/watch. So if you go to netflix.com/watch, you open uh, the video player, and to that video player you tell, okay, so this is the video that I want to play, and that is what is being played over here. So let's see if I just type in watch, what happens. Okay, you can see they have routed me to something else because they do not want me to, you know, just access the web, the video player. So when I go to netflix.com/watch, they basically reroute me to some other URL. But you now understand the working of Netflix. What they do is, if you go to netflix.com/browse, they are routing you to the home page. And if you go to netflix.com/watch, and some video ID if you specify, it will take you to that video which is being played. Okay, so now let's see how we can mimic this architecture on our system. So what I'm going to do is, if I go to netflix.com/home, I will be taken to the home page. And if I go to netflix.com/stream, or let's make it watch. So if netflix.com/watch, if I go to, it will take me to the video player. Okay, so this is something that we are going to configure now. And this we are going to do using the AWS infrastructure. Okay, so before we move on, guys, let me see if we have any questions. Okay, so Ujjwal is saying streaming and web page can be assigned SSL certificate to ELB. Well, Ujjwal, you can do that, but SSL certificates will only, improve the security. So my point is to basically show you how, this particular mechanism is done on AWS. So I'll be showing you that. So he's saying I'm talking about production. So yes, on production you can do that. In production you can, all you have to do is on your server you should have an SSL certificate, which is going to enable HTTPS connections, right? But if you might already know that SSL certificates are, you have to buy SSL certificates. You cannot just get them like that. So we are not going to make use of SSL certificates today, but we are going to mimic the mechanism that I just showed you. So Devashish is saying, do we need to attach load balancer to Route 53? Yes, Devashish, we are going to do that. Actually, I've not reached that step yet. I'm just still talking about, the URL based routing that we are going to accomplish in some time. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Is everyone clear as to what we have to do? Is everyone crystal clear as to what we will be doing right now? Any questions? Anaga says yes. Thank you, Anaga. Others? Radna says yes. Thank you, Radna. Others? No queries. Thanks, Hari Krishnan. Okay, thank you. All right. So if everybody is clear, let me go ahead and show you how this architecture is basically going to work. So first of all, let's create a home page. Let's create a page that we will be routed to if you go to /home. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, this is my web server where I'm able to go and see this page. Let's change this page to look like a home page. So what I'll do is, so once you have an Apache 2 server which is running, you can go ahead in this path /var/www/html, and this will have a page called index.html. Okay, so this index.html page, if you change this, your HTML will change over here. Okay, so for now, let me first delete this index.html page, and now let's create a new index.html page which says, let's say, welcome to home page. So I will create an HTML page which will, this is a very simple HTML code that I'm writing over here, which will says welcome to the home page. Okay, so this is what I've created, and if I refresh over here, you can see it says welcome to the home page. And even you guys, if you refresh, you will be able to see this particular web page which says welcome to the home page. Okay, so Surendra is saying how to minimize streaming. Surendra, I didn't get your question. If you can rephrase your question, I think I can, understand what you're trying to ask. Okay. Otherwise, guys, now if you go to the IP address that I gave you earlier, you should see this page. Welcome to the home page. Now, our web page, our web server, our home page is now ready. And now what I'll be doing is I'll be deploying this inside a private subnet. So let's see how we can do that. So for doing this, I will first go to my dashboard. And this is the server that I created. So let me create a copy of this server first. And then that copy, I will deploy it in the private subnet that we created earlier. So I'll just select the server that I created, click on actions. Then you have something called as image. So let's create an image. Image is nothing but it creates a copy of your server which can be deployed multiple times in. So we'll create an image. Let's call this image name as homepage, home, Netflix hyphen home. Let's specify this, right? Let's click on create image. And now my image is getting created. Okay. And that image will basically have this web server already deployed. Great. So now that it is happening, I think it will take a minute or two to create that image. And you can see that image in the under the image section in AMI. So if you go to AMIs, you can see that a Netflix home image is being created and it is in the pending state as of now. So I think if we refresh it a couple of times, you can see it will change to available. So let's wait. So while this is happening, let me explain you how the other things are going to work out. So as you must have noticed, right? So if you want to have a home page which is going to be separate, and if you want to have a watch page which is going to be separate, you will be dealing with two servers, right? And if you're dealing with two servers, you obviously will have two IP addresses, right? But as you can see from the behavior of the Netflix website, the URL always remains the same, right? Only the web page is changing. So how do we accomplish that? So we can accomplish it by having a common medium in the middle, which can connect to both my watch page and my home page. Okay. So this resource, which is the elastic load balancer that we're going to deploy in a minute, is going to have a URL which is always going to be the same. And this load balancer we can configure to understand if the URL is slash watch or slash stream, it is always going to route my request to the streaming servers. Whereas if my request is slash home, or let's say just slash, or just no URL at all, in that case it will be routing my request to the home page. So this is possible using the elastic load balancer, right? And this is something that we are going to go ahead and deploy now. Now I think we are ready to now understand how our architecture is going to be deployed. So now what I'm going to do is all my servers, they are going to be a part of my private subnet where I do not have internet access, right? But as we have known from the previous from our previous understanding, we know that everything within our Netflix network will be able to interact with each other. Okay. So in my Netflix network, I have a public subnet, I have a private subnet. So private subnet does not have internet access. Public subnet has internet access. So in my public subnet, I'm going to deploy my load balancer, right? In my private subnet, I'm going to deploy all my servers, right? And these servers can only be accessed by the load balancer and nothing else. Okay, nobody else will be able to connect to these servers directly. Only through my load balancer they will be able to access my servers. And this is a very good architectural practice when we talk about having security for our servers. Why? Because you can control which protocols can you interact with in your load balancer. For example, let's say a hacker wants to go ahead and make use of servers. They want to pass some commands, as I did on this terminal. Okay, so if you want your load balancer to restrict that, your load balancer will only allow HTTP traffic. What is HTTP traffic? HTTP traffic is the traffic that you get from your web browser. So only the web browser's traffic will be enabled through your load balancer. If somebody is trying to pass some command, if somebody is trying to connect through some other protocol, it will not be allowed. Okay. And even in that case, your load balancer will only allow some URLs. So only if you type in /home, you will be allowed. If you are typing something else, you will not be routed to my server. That again is a very good security aspect, that if your URL is pointing to netflix.com/home, only then you will be reaching my home server to access that content. You cannot access my content and from any other medium from that particular server. Okay, so this is how you can restrict hackers or restrict attackers from accessing your server, and it's a very good architectural practice to have your architectures deployed like this. Okay, so let me see if you have any questions with respect to whatever I've just explained. So Ehsan is saying, why did you have to create an AMI? So Ehsan, if I did not create an AMI, I will have to go inside, the server which will be there in the private subnet to configure it to have, the required softwares installed and the other software configurations. But I cannot do that obviously because no internet access is given to the resources which are there in the private subnet. So what I'm doing is I'm creating an image which has every bit of the software installed in it, and then I will just deploy that image inside the private subnet. In that case, I do not have to connect to it directly. Okay, so that is why I'm doing it. So Ujjwal is saying, how do we manage the private subnet server? So Ujjwal, we don't have to manage them, right? Because the reason being, we have created an image and we'll be directly deploying it over there now. So we don't have to manage them from our system. But one thing that we can do is something called as a Bastion host. So a Bastion host is might sound a very big name, but all a Bastion host is that it is a proxy server. What is a proxy server? If I want to connect to instances in the private subnet, can somebody tell me how can I access it? Can somebody tell me if I have to connect to a server from my local system to this server which is there in this network, how can I connect to it? Given I have access to my AWS management console, given I can deploy as many resources that I want, is there a way that I can connect to this server for passing a command? Can anybody tell me how we can do that? Okay, so Ganesh is saying which condition the elastic load balancer will allow access to private server. I will show you in a little while, Ganesh. Prasad is saying, are we not using S3 for storing the video or media files? So Prasad, we can do that, but right now we are focusing more on the architecture. So we're not getting into the implementation details. So I hope that answers your question. Ujjwal is saying, is Bastion host the best solution for connecting to your private servers, Ujjwal? Yes. So Devashish is saying, what we put in private subnet exactly, and what is the another port you were telling that restrict to access? So in a private subnet, whatever you see in this rectangle, Devashish, we will be deploying that. So we will be deploying, the servers which will our home page and a streaming page inside our private subnet, right? Our home page and a streaming page will then be able to access it uh, through the load balancer which will be deployed in the public subnet. So this is the architecture that I explained you. Altaf is saying I have him having the below issue. If you can suggest, it will be great. Otherwise, please proceed. So it says no. So Altaf is getting an error. Not supported authentication methods available. So Altaf, you have not selected the PPK file in the SSH option of your auth. So select that, then put in the IP address, and then click on open. That should resolve your doubt. Okay. Ujjwal is saying Git or AWS CLI. Okay. So Hari is saying, please repeat the question. I'll do that, Hari. Nagaraju is saying using proxy to connect. Okay. Nagaraju, you're right. Proxy to connect, but how will we do that architecture? How will we create that architecture of connecting it, to the servers that they're deployed in a private subnet? Is something that I'm trying to ask. Mopa is saying allowing a route in the route table, we can connect to the private server. There is an easy way, Mopa, also. So just think on the lines of how your load balancer is accessing your are accessing your private servers. Just think on those lines and you will be able to crack the answer. Ramesh is saying NAT gateway, not no Ramesh, not NAT gateway. Okay, so can anybody guess it? Okay, so Parveen is saying first connect public network server, from that server connect to private network. Okay, so Parveen has given me the right answer. So what I'll have to do, guys, is this rectangle over here is my public subnet, right? So what I'll do is I'll deploy a server over here, which will have internet access. I will connect to this server from my system using SSH. Now, once I'm inside this server obviously can access every resource which is a part of the Netflix network, right? So using this server, I will then SSH into the private servers that I have in the private subnet. Is everyone clear with what I have just told you? Any doubts in what I've told you? I will deploy a EC2 server over here in the public subnet. That subnet will have, that EC2 server will have access to all the servers which are there in the network, right? Even if it's private or public. So then what I will do is once I'm inside this server which is there in the public subnet, I will SSH to the server which is there in the private subnet. Does that make sense? Is everyone clear? So Altaf says yes. Okay. Hari says yes. Ganesh says no. Okay, Ganesh. So you can tell me what is not clear. I'll be happy to answer. Surendra says yes. Raj says yes. Naga, Ramesh. Thank you for the confirmation, guys. So Ganesh, let me repeat it for you. So this rectangle over here is my public subnet. Is this clear? Ujjwal and Amit are also saying repeat. I'm gonna repeat it, guys, for you. So this rectangle is my public subnet. Is this clear to you? Okay. Okay, great. So Devashish is saying, but why we need to do this? Public will be exposed to hacker. So Devashish, we are going to do this just to configure. So somebody asked a question. If I have to configure my servers, if I have to do some maintenance on my private servers, how will I do it? So I will deploy a temporary server in the public network. I will connect to it, and through that I will connect to my private server. So this is just for maintenance, right? Uh, and only for that reason I will be deploying that server, nothing else. So Nagaraju says someone hacked Netflix public server, they may get access to the other server. You're right, Nagaraju. But like I said, it is only temporary. When I have to do some maintenance on my private servers, I'll be doing this. Other than that, I'll not be doing it. Okay. All right. So, okay, let me get back to what I was explaining. So this is my public subnet. Everyone understands this. And this rectangle is my private subnet. Okay. So this rectangle has internet access. This rectangle does not have internet access. This is the rectangle where my private servers are going to be deployed. And this is the rectangle where I'm going to have a public server deployed, which in this case, I have also deployed a Ubuntu server. So I've deployed it inside a public subnet. Okay. Now, do you guys agree that whatever I'm going to deploy in this rectangle or this subnet is going to have access to resources which will be deployed in this rectangle, which is the private subnet? Does everyone agree with that? Okay, Nagaraju says yes, Hari says yes. Ganesh, do you agree with that? Ujjwal, Amit, okay, everyone has said yes. Amit, I'm waiting for you. Okay, Amit says not sure. So, Amit, as I said earlier, we are inside one network, and the Netflix network that we created, right? That is the big network that we created. Inside that big network, we created small networks which were public and private. Public had internet access, private did not have internet access. Okay. So all these resources which are a part of the big network, which is Netflix, all the resources can talk to each other. Is that correct or not? Do you agree with that, Amit, or not? Okay, Amit says yes. All right. So now because they can talk to each other, now imagine this rectangle is my private subnet. Okay. And this rectangle is my public subnet. And what is the difference that I told you between the two is the public subnet has internet access. The private subnet, it does not have internet access. Okay. So if I connect to a server which is there in my public subnet, right? Because I'll be able to connect to it. Why? Because it has internet access. If I connect to a server in the public subnet, I can then connect my private server through this public server, right? If I connect to this Ubuntu server on my terminal like this, and then in this server which is there in the public subnet, if I enter the SSH command again, and I enter the IP address this time, the private IP address of the private server which is deployed in the private subnet, will I be not be able to connect to it? Okay, so Amit says yes. So Amit, that is exactly what I'm trying to tell. If I have a private machine which is deployed in this private subnet, if I have to connect it from my machine, what I'll be doing is I'll be launching a machine in the public subnet, and through that I will be connecting to it. Okay, it'll be more clear to you when I do it in the terminal. So Devashish is saying, do you mean to say in real-time scenario we do not have any public machine? They use only private machines? Yes, Devashish. So every big MNC, right, which are dealing with uh, a product which is accessed by millions of people, every day, right? And if they are following the right security best practices, none of their servers will be exposed on the internet. It will always be inside a private subnet. So that is what I am trying to tell you. Okay. All right. So coming back, now we have our homepage image ready, right? Now let's create an image for our streaming server as well. So what I'll do is, again, let's create one more image from this server itself. Let's again go back to this directory. Let's change the index.html, and this time let's say welcome to the streaming page. save it. Okay, and now if you go to this IP address, you will see it will now say welcome to the streaming page. Okay, and now let's create an image out of this as well. So again, we'll go to EC2. So in our Ubuntu image, we'll go to image, we'll go to create image, and let's call this image name as Netflix stream. Okay, so now the image will be created for that as well. Now what I'll do is I will go ahead and launch my home page in my private subnet. Let's see how we can do that. So I'll click on launch instance and I will choose my AMIs over here. I'll not choose any operating system now. I'll just choose my AMIs. And now I will choose the Netflix home image, which I created earlier. Let's select it. I want to launch it in the free tier server. Everything is going to be the same that we did earlier. Just that now I will be selecting a private subnet which I'll be deploying it in. So I'll be choosing the private 2A network. Let's deploy it over here. And this is our home page that we're deploying. Security group, we will select again the default security group. And we're going to restrict it. Don't worry about that. We're going to restrict that security group. And let's choose the same key pair that we used earlier, Netflix demo. Acknowledge that we have it and click on launch instances. So this is now getting launched in US West 2A. It's going to be launched in the 2A data center. This is basically now called Netflix-home. This is the home server that you have launched, home page that you have launched, and it will take a little while. And as you can see, it is now running. Now, if you have a look at the settings of this server, you will see that it will not have a public IP address, right? Why? Because we deployed it inside a private network, right? But it will have a private IP address. But this private IP address can only be reached out within the network. It cannot be reached out from outside of the network. Remember this, okay? So this is the IP address that we will be connecting through from our public instance, which is nothing but this instance that we connected to earlier. All right. Okay. So we have launched our home page. Now let's go back. Let's see if our streaming page is ready. So even streaming page is now ready. Let's launch this as well. So I'll just select the streaming image, click on action, click on launch. This is another way of launching it, right? This is the server that I want to launch. I want to launch it under the free tier. It will be deployed in the Netflix network. And this time I'm going to deploy it in private 2B data center. Okay. Everything else going to be the same. Security group, I'll select the default one. Click on review and launch it. Select the same key pair that I selected earlier, acknowledge that I have it, click on launch instances, and with this, my streaming page has also been launched. Okay, great. So now I have two servers which are now deployed inside private subnets, and as you can see, I do not have a public IP address over here. Okay, and hence I will not be able to access them from the internet. These are not having any internet access, and I will prove it to you in a little while. Okay, so I have the home page which is now running. I have the stream page which is now running. I have, let's name it as proxy server. So I have a proxy server which is running in the public subnet, which has internet. Now what I'll do is, using this proxy server, I will be connecting to this home page and the stream page server. So let's see how we can do that. So first we need to copy the Pem file that we have on this proxy server. So let's copy it. So the way you can copy it is use a command called SCP, which is called secure copy. So first you will have to authenticate yourself using the proxy server's Pem file. Then you will have to specify the file that you want to copy. So the file name is again this Pem file I want to copy, right? Where do I want to copy it? I want to copy it on the proxy server, which is this IP address, and I want to copy it in this particular file location, which is /home/ubuntu. Hit enter. Since I specified sudo, it is asking me for my computer's password. Specified that, and now the file has been copied successfully. So now if I SSH into my server again, you can see that the file has been copied, netflix-demo.pem. It has been copied onto my proxy server or my public server that I launched earlier. Okay. Now people on Windows, if you want to do the same, what you can do is follow a simpler method. You can download a software called Filezilla. Okay. So Filezilla helps you to copy files from your local system to your specified server, right? So you can use this software to connect to your server and copy files. How you can use it, I will request you to just follow a small tutorial on YouTube and you will understand how to use this tool. It's very simple. Okay, so let me see if I have some questions. So Nagaraju says static PAT need to configure this for private servers. Uh, Static private address, is that what you mean by PAT? Nagaraju, can you explain me what PAT means? But I don't need to configure any static addresses for my private servers, Nagaraju, because my private servers, the private IP that they get, they're already static. They are never unassigned from those servers if, let's say, I'm not using them. If let's say I'm not detaching them manually. Even if I stop the server, if I restart the server, it will always going to be the same. Okay. Kirti saying any feedback link, sir. So Kirti, I did not understand. You mean the feedback for this session? For the feedback for this session will be available once this webinar is ended. You can use it to give feedback. Raju saying you created AMI from public. Will it bring the enable auto IP feature to private instance? No, Raj, it will not bring it because that feature is basically enabled on AWS. On AWS configuration. It is not enabled on the server's configuration. So as you might understand, a public IP address is an external resource to the server, right? So your server will not get the public IP address. Don't worry about that. So Harikishan is saying, is this similar in Windows as well? So Harikishan, like I said, you can use the Filezilla software for copying the files. Devashish is saying we can use Filezilla to copy. Yes, Devashish. Nagaraj is saying port address translations. So port address translations will not be required, Nagaraju, when you want to connect, and it will be more clear to you as we progress in doing this hands-on. Anaga is saying, can you please repeat the step in short once again? So Anaga, what I've done is I use the SCP command. If I can show you. Okay, so I use this SCP command to copy the PEM file from my system to the remote system that I have on AWS. So this is what I've done. And once I did that, I can see that it's now available to me, and now I can use this file to connect to my private servers. This is what I've done. Ashish is saying, sorry to ask, what does AMI mean? AMI basically means, Ashish, Amazon Machine Image. So Amazon Machine Image basically means the machine that you launched. If you want to create a copy of it, you create a AMI for it. That is what AMI is. So Mupai is saying Ubuntu server is not able to connect to .ppk file in North Virginia region. So Mupa, what is the exact error you are getting? If you can tell me that, I can help you further. So if you are using a Linux instance, I do not understand what you mean by I tried with a Linux instance instead. So if you did not launch Ubuntu, in that case, your username will be ec2-user. It will not be Ubuntu. So Altaf is saying, how can we install software in private subnet instances? So Altaf, that's why we created the image. So our image already had the softwares installed, right? So we do not have to install it in the private instances again. Okay, that's why we created the image and then we launched it inside the private subnet. Okay, great. So now that I have the Pem file on my server, guys, the next thing that I will be doing is I'll be connecting to my private server. Now, where is my private server? My private server is this. Let's connect to a Netflix home server. Okay. So Netflix home server, this is the IP address, the private IP address for my Netflix home server. Let's try to connect to it. So I will be typing in SSH hyphen I and then the Pem file, the username, and then the private IP address. So as you can see, earlier my IP was 10.1.1216. Now it has changed to 10.1.3.193. And that is the IP address of my Netflix home server. As you can see, the private IP address of my Netflix home server is 10.1.3.193. So this basically means I have successfully connected to my private instance. Now, for some of you who still have a doubt whether, if I pass this on my local machine, what will happen? So right now I'm inside the AWS server, right? But let's say, this is the terminal for my local machine. If I pass the same command over here, okay, first let me go to the folder which has the pen file. Okay, so if I pass in the same command over here, you will be able to see it will not recognize what this address is. Can you see it's not connecting? It's not doing anything. Why? Because it does not know what this IP address means. Why? Because my local machine is not a part of the Netflix network, which is there on AWS, right? But this machine is, and that's why when I passed this command, it was able to connect to this Netflix home server. Now, what I'll do is I'll just check if the web server is running. Yes, so it is active, it is running. That means if I curl, so this is something that I'm just doing for my checking, guys. If you don't understand, it's fine. Okay, so that means my Apache server is working on Netflix Home, which is great. So let me just exit. So I've exited, and now I'm back to my public server. You can see the IP address changed. And now let me log into my Netflix streaming server as well. So I'll just change this IP address to my stream server. So my Netflix stream server has the IP address as 4.167. Let's specify that. So as you can see, I have connected to my Netflix stream server now. And if we check if the web server is running over here, yes, it is running over here as well. Great. So both my servers are running fine, and I've just showed you how to if some maintenance is required, how to do maintenance on your uh, private machines. Right now, what I can do is once maintenance is done, I can just delete this proxy server, and then I'll not be giving any access to my uh, private machines. One thing that I forgot to show you was let's say this is my public machine that I've launched on right now, right? This is my proxy machine that I've connected to, right? This has internet connection. How do we know that? First of all, we are able to access it from my local machine. At the same time, if I type in curl google.com, you can see that there is a response that I get, right? But if I, let's say, go to my private machine, right? And if I do a curl google.com over here, you can see that I'm not getting any response over here. Why? Because this machine does not have internet access. Okay, and this proves that. Great. Let me exit. And now that our web servers are ready, they are ready inside, a private subnet. Let's configure our load balancers to connect to this machine. Okay. Meanwhile, let me see if we have any questions. So Sri Ganesh is saying how long this session will continue. So Sri Ganesh, it will take 15 more minutes and then we will be done. Ehsan is saying, I'm confused about proxy servers. Did we create this server? So Ehsan, this proxy server is nothing but the same server that I deployed in the public subnet where I created the image, right? So I'm not creating one more server. I'm just using this as a proxy server now because that is also a part of the same network, which is the public subnet, right? So essentially what you just need is a machine in a public subnet that you can connect to, and through that you can connect to your private machines. So there's nothing to be confused about, but if you still are, let me know. I can explain you further. Okay. So Devashish is saying how people connect to private network if you don't have public machine. Devashish, there is no way that you can connect to a private machine, and that is why it is a good architectural practice to do it. Any other questions, guys? Should we proceed? Okay, great. So now what I'll do is, so Devashish is saying only we use website page. Uh, so Devashish, nobody else will be able to use this website page also. It will be through the load balancer that people will be accessing it. So let me go ahead and show you how that architecture is, and then we can discuss if anything is not clear. Okay, so now what I'll do is, let's create a load balancer. So I'll just scroll on my EC2 console, and I will be able to see something called as load balancers over here. Let's click over it. So let's click on create a load balancer, and I will be creating an application load balancer. So application load balancer basically works on the application layer, and it basically helps us to do path-based routing, that which is something that we are trying to accomplish, which is if I go to netflix.com/stream, I should be going to my stream server. If I go to /home, I should be going to my home server. So we'll be creating an application load balancer. Let's name it as Netflix-demo. This is going to be an internet facing load balancer, right? And the protocol that we are going to use is HTTP protocol. Okay, so here, as you can see, this is very important. So the only protocol that this load balancer is going to allow is HTTP protocol, nothing else. All right. Which VPC will this load balancer be a part of? It will be a part of the Netflix VPC, and this has to connect to 2A and 2B servers, private servers. So if they have to connect to private servers in 2A and 2B, this load balancer has to be deployed in public 2A and public 2B. Only then it will be part of the network, and then it will be able to connect to your machines. Okay, so what is the configuration that we did here? So you have configured your load balancer to connect to your private machines only using the HTTP protocol, nothing else. Okay, let's configure the firewall for this. So firewall, we'll be using the default firewall only, will not be making any changes. Let's specify routing now. So for routing, you will have to specify which servers to connect to, right? So right now, let's go ahead and specify a target group. Let's name it as public hyphen server. And now let's go ahead and specify the public server IP address. So the way I can do that is by specifying uh, the servers that I'll be able to connect to, right? So what I'll do is target group is nothing but the set of servers that you can connect to, right? So let's specify the name of this to be, let's say this is the home page server, right? Let's click on next. And now what I can do is I can select the home page that I want to connect to. So this is the home page that I want to connect to. And let's click on next again. So this is the target group that I've just created for my home server. I'll be creating one more target group. Don't worry about that. So let me first create it and then I'll explain you what I've just done. So let's create this load balancer now. Okay, so load balancer is now created. Next thing that we will be doing is we will be creating one more target group. So we have created one target group for homepage server. Let's create one for streaming server. Okay, this streaming server will also be a part of the Netflix VPC. And now let's go ahead and click on create. Okay, so now my target group has been created. So I have a homepage server and now I have a streaming server as well that I would want to connect to. And in this, so homepage server should have the homepage server connected to it. So it is not connected. Let's connect the homepage server over here, which is Netflix home server. Let's register it to this target group, save it. And similarly, in my streaming server target group, let's connect our stream server, register it, and click on save. Okay, so both of these now have the targets attached to them. And now what we can do is now we will be specifying the rules for our load balancer. So let's go back to our load balancer. And now what I can do is so now I have to specify this routing rule, which is if I go to slash stream, then it should connect to the target group of my streaming server. And if I go to slash home, it should connect to the servers of my home server, the server of my home page. Okay, so let's see how we can configure that. Okay, so you will have to go to listener and then you will have to specify rules. So let's go ahead and edit these rules over here. Okay, so right now what is happening is anything which is going to this server, it will be routed to the home page server. Okay, so let's add a route over here. Let's click on insert rule and add a condition. So we'll be adding a condition for a path, and the path will be if it goes to slash stream or let's say slash watch, right? It should then forward this request to the streaming server. All right. So if the path is slash watch, the request will be forwarded to the streaming server. Okay. If uh, if there is no path specified, it will be routed to my homepage server. If there is, let me specify one more thing. If so, let me first save it, right? And let us add one more rule. So if the path is slash home, in that case, it should forward the request to my homepage server. And now let's click on save. Okay, so now I have configured my load balancer to forward request to my homepage server when this path is specified. So let's check if this is working or not. Okay, so I'll just go back. This is my load balancer that I created, right? So this is the URL that is there for my load balancer. Let's copy it. Let's paste it on my browser. So as you can see, I'm being routed to my home page. Now I will right now get an error if I go to slash watch. It says requested URL was not found in this server. And the reason for that is that whenever you want to go to a particular path, what you'll have to do is you will have to specify a folder in your server. Okay. I will clear it to you in a little while. So let me first make it work and then I'll answer all your queries. Give me 1 second. So if I go to slash stream server, which is this IP address, I have to go inside this server. I have to create a directory called watch. And inside this directory, I will have to copy the index.html. Okay. And now you can see if I go to my load balancer slash watch. 1 second. Okay, so this is my streaming server. All right. And inside my streaming server, if I go to watch, I have my index.html. And let me verify my settings of load balancer. So if I go to listeners and if I go to the rules, so if slash home is there, it'll go to homepage server. If slash watch is there, it'll go to streaming server. And let me verify streaming server's IP address. Okay, streaming server target is Netflix stream and it is healthy. Okay, so now if somebody is going to my streaming server and the path is slash watch, it says it's 100%. Okay, we'll verify that in a moment, guys. Let's see what the problem is over here. So I think if we go to rules and try to edit these rules. Okay, let's try and see if this works for us. So if I'm going to slash watch, yes. So the star was missing over here. So now if I'm going to my load balancer slash watch, I'm going to the streaming page. And similarly, what I'll also have to do is, let me exit and let me go to my home server as well. Okay, so here as well, I will have to add a home directory. Let me quickly do that. Okay. And now if I go to my load balancer, let's say I'm going to slash home, you can see I'm being routed to the welcome to the home page. And if I'm just going to the URL, then also I'm being routed to welcome to the home page. Okay, now I know that you guys will have a lot of questions. Let me pick it one by one and then I'll be answering it. Okay, Kishore says a lot of kind words. Thank you, Kishore. Ashish is saying, how do we deploy applications to private networks in future? So, Ashish, for deploying application to private networks, it's going to be the same way that I showed you. We created a private subnet, right? And in that private subnet, we deployed some resources, right? So this is how you do it. Now, if you want to configure them, you will have to have a proxy server that you'll be deploying in a public subnet, which will then be able to talk to your private subnet. But that will be the way. Okay, so Sri Ganesh is saying, what is the function of load balancer? Sri Ganesh, load balancer basically is one single endpoint through which you can interact with a lot of servers. So that is what the function of load balancer is. Murthy is saying, any plans to show registered users versus new user accessing websites through ELB? Murthy, that will not actually, be any difference, because if you create users, that will be actually on the application. It has nothing to do with the load balancer. Nagaraju says group level strictness is off. In rules, what is it? So stickiness basically means, Nagaraju, when let's say you are connected to a server and you're uploading something over there, right? So if you have uploaded something to that server, it will not be replicated across the other servers. So when you enable stickiness for the session that you are connected to, your request will always be routed to the same server through which the load balancer has given you the first access. Because what happens is right now we just have two servers. We don't have any replicas of it. On production architectures, we have a lot of replicas of each server. So which replica to connect to, your load balancer randomly picks up one and connect you to it, whichever is available. But if you have something that you are uploading and you're in the process of uploading it, the problem is that you have to be on the same server while that process is happening. And that is what stickiness basically attends to. So Devashi is saying, why we put star in slash watch. So Devashi, star basically means that anything after this URL, whatever is anything, whatever thing what you want to add after slash watch, right? It does not matter. You should still be routed to the same server. For example, if I type in slash watch, right, and then I can type in anything over here. So if this file exists on the server, I will still be on the watch server, not on the home server. So this is what star means. That means I can have anything after this URL, and still my request will be forwarded to that target group which has the watch servers, no other target group. That's what star basically means. Uh, so Raju is saying, won't be using Route 53. We will be using Raj. Okay, so Kishore is saying, wanted to connect with you. Uh, okay, so Kishore, let's talk after this session. Surendra is saying, awesome and big session. Please share me recording on this email. Yes, Surendra, it will be shared to you. Nagaraju is saying, many thanks for the sessions yesterday and today. You're welcome, Nagaraju. Okay, Murthy is saying, proxy server, private subnet for UI application, private subnet for RDS will be typical config, right? It will be the same config, Murthy. Now that you know how the networks are basically configured, you can launch any resource and then you can just have to specify that that resource has to launch in a private subnet, right? And then since with databases, the scene is that only your application will be connecting to the database. Nobody else, nobody from the outside also will be connecting to your database. So in that case, you don't have to configure anything else, right? Since your database will be going to be a part of the Netflix network, right? So your database can automatically be connected to your application servers which you have deployed in the private subnet. Okay. Altaf is saying Netflix architecture good and easy to understand. Do we have any other cloud architecture repository where we can try to implement and simulate? Altaf, not as of now, but you can just subscribe to the Intellipaat YouTube channel. So if we have something coming up, we can actually, we are actually going to publish it over there, and you will be the you'll be the right audience to get notified in that case. Ashish is saying, thanks. For example, if you have multiple servers, say 100, do we need manual SSH to all with proxy? No, Ashish. So that is why you deal with images. So I created an image, and through that image, now I can create 100 servers. So I don't have to configure every one of them. Now, let's say there is one common change that I have to do in all the servers. So what I'll do is I'll create an image, and then I'll replace all those 100 servers with the new servers that I'll be deploying. So that is how you do it. Devashi is saying, is companies like Netflix use Windows or Linux? Which OS they use for hosting their website? So Devashish, they use Linux for hosting it most of the times. It'll never be Windows. It'll either be Linux or some custom operating system that they have made. It'll never be Windows. So Sharath is saying, please share the recording. Sharath will be shared to you. Don't worry. Raj is saying, Hemant, do you also teach AWS Solutions Architect course in Intellipaat? Yes, Raj, I do. So you can just check with Intellipaat in case you're interested. Okay, guys. So now what we'll be doing is, now we will be connecting a custom URL to our load balancer. And I understand we have already, taken a lot of time for this session. It'll just take 5 to 10 more minutes, guys, and then we'll be done. Okay. So first things first, what you need is a URL first. So what you need to do is just go to your Freenom website. So there's a website called Freenom. It basically gives you free URLs. Okay. Otherwise, if you have to buy a URL, it's a proprietary resource. You'll have to pay for the URLs that you want. But with Freenom, you can get a free URL at your will. Okay. So just sign up on Freenom. So I already have signed up. So let me just connect to it. Let me sign in quickly. Okay, I'm connected. Let's go to my domains. So right now I have some domains, but I'll be showing you once you sign up, how you can create your own domain. So what I'll be doing is, as you can see, these are some domains that I have. I'll be creating a new domain just like you guys would be doing when you sign up. So I'll just go to register a new domain, go to services, go to register a new domain. And in register a new domain, just specify the name of the domain that you want. So in my case, I want Netflix-demo. Let's check the availability. So as you can see, these are all domains which are free and I can get them. So let's get this domain, check it out, continue. And just agree to the conditions and click on complete order. So with this, your order has been confirmed and you can now go ahead to my domains. You have the Netflix demo domain registered to you. You can just click on manage domain. And here you will have to go to click on management tools and then click on name servers. Okay, and what you have to type in is custom name servers. So these are some name servers that you have to fill in. Now, how can you fill these name servers? Again, go back to your AWS management console, click on services, type in route 53. Now, once you're inside route 53, you will have to choose a hosted zone. Let's click on create hosted zone. And over here, just type in the domain name that you created. So it's netflix-demo.pk. Give the same name over here, click on create, and this will create a hosted zone for you. Now, as you can see, these are name servers that you will have to enter over there in Freenom. Okay, so just select this, copy these name servers one by one, Go to the second name server, again copy it from here. Third name server, again copy it from here. Fourth name server, again copy it from here. Okay, so that's all the changes that you have to do on Freenom. You can close it now. Now in Route 53, you just have to do one small change. Click on create record set, right? And now what you'll be doing is you'll be pointing. So what have you done so far? You have mentioned these name servers in your Freenom website, right? So now your domain will be pointing to these name servers, which are basically the Route 53 service that you have. Now this Route 53, you will have to point to your load balancer. So how will you do that? You will find this section called alias, click on yes. And here you have to select your Netflix demo load balancer. Okay, click on create. So entry is made over here. Similarly, one more entry you have to create with the similar settings, just that in name you will have to enter www as well. Click on alias yes, select the load balancer, click on create. Okay, so with this, now your Route 53 is ready. And now what you can do is just go to a browser, type in netflix-demo.tk, hit enter, and it will now route you to the home page directly. And now if you go to the URL slash watch, it is now pointing you to the streaming page. And this is exactly what is happening on your Netflix website as well. So let me quickly show it to you. Okay. So if we go to netflix.com/browse, it'll take you to the home page. If you type in netflix.tk/home, it'll take you to the home page. If you type in netflix.com/watch and then the video title, it will take you to the video player, which will play the video file for you. And similarly, if here you go to netflix.com/watch, you will be taken to the streaming page. And guys, this is how you mimic the architecture for Netflix on AWS. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can let me know. I'll be happy to answer. If not, let's conclude today's session. So Devshi is saying, what are the security group port like RDP, ICMP, etc.? Please little elaborate on this. So in security group, if you specify RDP, Devashish, RDP basically has a port of 3000 something, right? So RDP is always available on a specific port. So if you select RDP, that port is opened in the firewall, and through that you will be able to connect to your machine. Similarly, if you select ICMP, ICMP has a separate port which is designated to it. So if you allow ICMP connections, then that port is enabled in the firewall. So Raj is saying we have to create two records, one with www and the other one as nothing. You just don't have to enter anything. One you have to enter nothing, and in the other you have to enter www. Okay, Benoy says thank you, good session. You're welcome, Benoy. Raj says also how will the movie stored in the database? Will this be connected to the architecture? So now the application that you have for your streaming player, right? That you will have to deploy in this server. That's it. From the architecture point of view, what we have done is we have showed you how cloud architecture will be deployed for Netflix. And now here you just have to replace the streaming page with your video player, right? And then it will start to work like that. Now, what you're asking is how will the movies be stored? It will not be stored inside the database. Your database will just have the data about the movie. For example, the title, the rating of the movie, the description of the movie, etc. right? And what you'll have later, what you'll have, the movie itself will basically be stored in a service like S3 or Google Drive. Not in Google Drive, but I'm just giving you an example. Just like you have Google Drive, you have something called as S3 in AWS. So that is where you will be storing your movies. So Altaf is saying, general question, what are the responsibilities of cloud architect? So Altaf, a cloud architect is basically responsible for system design. So system design is something that I explained to you yesterday as to how to solve technical problems, and then converting that system design into an architecture on cloud. That is the responsibility of a cloud architect. Ashish is saying thank you very much, very informative. You're welcome, Ashish. Devashi is saying the videos in Netflix will be in S3. So yes, Devashish, the videos in Netflix basically they are using S3 for storing it, and then what they have done is they are basically making use of something called as a content delivery network by the company called OpenConnect. So with that, what they do is they, cache all the movies on the Edge servers, the one that which we discussed yesterday, right? So that is how the whole architecture is going to be now. Hari is saying thank you for the awesome session and your patience in answering all our questions. No worry, Hari, that is my job. Thank you for attending today's session. Raj is saying, will you then point S3 to ELB? No, Raj. So S3 will directly, the S3 link will be pointed to uh, by your video player. Okay, so your video player will be pointing to the S3 and will be streaming the video from there. So your ELB is just to route you to the client of Netflix, which is either the video player or the homepage. That's it. Altaf says thanks a lot. Great, Altaf. You're welcome. Praveen says thank you. Thank you, Praveen. Anjali says, I would like to connect with you too, sir. Great, Anjali. Let's talk. Raj says, CloudFront is similar to OpenConnect. Yes, Raj, it's exactly the same. It's just that the companies are different. CloudFront is offered by AWS, and OpenConnect is a company itself which offers the CDN service. Sai Sarita says, thank you. A lot of information. You're welcome, Sarita. Altaf says thank you. So Devshi is saying deep knowledge of Linux is necessary for AWS. Not deep knowledge, Devshi, but as you practice on AWS, you automatically will get to know about the Linux servers. It also depends on your company. So some companies they do not deploy applications on cloud; they just use servers. So if your company is into Windows servers, so in that case you do not need Linux knowledge. So it depends on the company that you're applying for. Raghavendra says, can you repeat your name? Raghavendra, my name is Hemant. Uh, Mike says, how do we set up user authentication via website or AWS? So user authentication, Mike, is handled on the application level. You do not handle it from AWS perspective, but yes, the tools required, for example, a database, for example, the firewall, etc., that is given to you by AWS. But everything is from the user authentication point of view. When you talk about an application like Netflix, then it is managed via code. Moti is saying it's a very good session. Do you have any resources to go through various AWS architecture for various services? Yes, Murthy. So there are just search for AWS white papers, and there what you have to look for is design patterns, right? So 6 are my patterns, design patterns. These are something which will have a lot of AWS architectures for you to go through. So you can just go through them. So Raj is saying thanks a lot, Hemant. Very informative session. You're welcome, Raj. Raj says I would too would like to connect. All right, guys. Radhakrishnan says thank you, a lot of information. Welcome, Radhakrishnan. Ujjwal says thanks. Okay. Hassan says thank you for introducing me to a new topic. Would like to connect with you afterwards. Please provide your contact information as I'm very new to IT world. Sure, Hassan, will do that. Raghavendra says thank you, Hemant. Great. Ujjwal, nice session. Okay, a lot of kind words, guys. Thank you. Murthy says like current Netflix use case using other services, Lambda, CloudWatch, API, etc. Yes. So Murthy, we can do a lot of more these sessions where we can expand on the other features as well. What we have just scraped is just a tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of things that you can actually go ahead and configure, but that will require a lot more time. So whatever was possible in the time that we had, guys, we accomplished this today. Ashish says, how do we monitor running applications and access logs? So Ashish, again, there's a service in AWS. It's called CloudWatch. So what you'll have to do is you will have to enable via code, how to write logs and all, and then you can use CloudWatch to monitor these logs. Okay. Anaga says, thanks. If this is end of the second, then please tell me about exam on SAME and certification. Okay, so Anaga, there is an exam called AWS Solutions Architect exam. So the exam code is SAC02. So in order to become a cloud architect or for you to apply for cloud architect jobs, it's better if you have certifications and you can give that exam, and that will help you, in your resume and building, and also for applying for jobs as architects. Okay, so Ujjwal has given his website. Great, Ujjwal. I'll visit that. And your email we already have, Ujjwal. Great. Altaf is saying, personal question. I'm currently working as a senior developer. I would like to become a cloud architect. What's the best approach to kickstart? So Altaf, what you can do is there is something called as an AWS developer certification. So if you are working as a developer, it'll be great if you first start off by understanding the SDKs of AWS, right? There are a lot of SDKs which help you interact with the AWS services, right? Start off by learning that, get yourself certified as an AWS developer, right? And then later you can become a cloud. You can give us an exam for cloud architect as well. I think that will be the right path. And with that, you can actually, appear as a very or apply for very senior architect roles as well, because usually the people who are at the top of the jobs for architects, they basically are people who were developers themselves before, right? Or people who became architects later become developers and then became senior architects or CTOs of some companies. So my recommendation to you would be get certified in the AWS developer certification, and then later what you can do is you can go ahead and apply for the AWS architect certification as well. Okay, Asan is saying I would definitely recommend yours. Okay, all right, great, Asan, lovely, good to hear that. Murthy says, do they give detailed steps how to do it? Murthy, they will tell you the architecture. They will not give you the step-by-step way to implement it, but yes, after today's session, I think you will be able to understand a bit or two about how that architecture is basically formed, right? If you want more information, you just can Google about each and every service which is being in that used in that architecture, and I think that should help. Ujjwal says, provide me your number. I run a consulting firm. Sure, Ujjwal. Ujjwal, actually, I'll not be able to provide my personal number to you. But what I can do is I can give you guys my professional email ID, right? You can reach out to me over that. So let me type it over here. So it is hemant@intellipaat.com. You can reach me over here over the email, and I'd be happy to answer all your queries. The reason I cannot give you my number, Ujjwal, is because we are connecting through the Intellipaat channel today, right? And I am not allowed to do that. But this is my Intellipaat ID. You can connect me over this, and I'd be happy to answer all your queries. So Altaf says, how can I get real-time experience? So Altaf, once you get certified in AWS developer certification, you will have to apply for AWS developer jobs. And with that, what you get is you not only get to experience the developer world of AWS, where you learn about services that you can interact with code. You also get to wear multiple hats. If you apply for a startup, they usually have only two or three cloud guys who do everything from development to architectures, to even administration. So that is how you will learn, right? You will learn by doing. And the first step for you, because you're a developer, the right step for you to basically be certified in AWS developer certification first. Devashish is saying, if we study AWS course and I get an Azure opportunity, do I need to study differently? Not necessarily, Devashish. So basically, all the cloud providers are the same, right? If you talk about Azure, if you understand AWS through and through, And if you use Azure for, let's say, 3 or 4 days, you will be able to relate everything which you have learned in AWS to, the Azure cloud platform. It's just that the service names will be different, but rest, the working, the architecture, everything is going to be the same. So what architecture we implemented today can easily be implemented in Azure as well, right? So it's just about knowing how cloud works. The platform does not matter actually. So Ashish says, any plan in future for demo on AWS, Docker, Kubernetes? Sure, Ashish, why not? And we actually have a lot of videos like that on our Intellipaat YouTube channel as well. So you can just check that out. And we will be coming up with more sessions, which will be published to our YouTube platforms. And if in case we are coming up with this webinar also, it'll be informed on YouTube as well. Okay, so with that, guys, I thank you all for joining today. People who were asking me about my personal details, you can actually go out on this email address, guys. If you have any queries, you can mail over here. I'm very active usually during the weekdays, so I'll be helping you, answer your queries. So with that said, guys, if there are no more questions, let's go ahead and end this session. So I thank you all for joining in today. Uh, let's do a small quiz if people are interested. So which load balancer did we deploy today? Can you choose among the two and let me know? Let's see how much you have learned. So which load balancer did we deploy today? Okay, a lot of people are saying A. Kishore says B. Paveen says B. Raj says ALB. All right. So guys, the answer is we deployed an application load balancer, right? Application load balancer is a type of elastic load balancer, but application load balancer basically helps you to do path-based routing. So that is what we deployed today. Okay, next question. Which service did we use for DNS routing? Okay, okay, Ganesh says A. All right. Others are saying Route 53. Venkata Ranganand is saying EC2. Okay. Raghavendra is saying A. Okay. Tamilmani is saying EC2. No, guys. So DNS routing basically means, connecting your domain to your load balancer. So we used Route 53 to get those name servers, remember? And then we included those name servers on the Freenom website. So we used Route 53 for DNS routing. Okay. Next question. Which service among these is the database service, RDS or EC2? Okay, Binoy says RDS. All right. Okay, everyone has the right answer for this. Great, guys. Great, guys. So I thank you all for joining today. Now, if you're interested to, learn more about AWS, you can just head over to intellipaat.com and you can get a flat 30% off on the course by using the promo code YouTube30, and that will give you a flat 30% off. So if you're interested, head over to intellipaat.com, or what you can also do is you can also call us on these numbers and we will be happy to assist all of you. Like I said, if you're interested to know more about AWS or contacting Intellipaat, you can do it on these numbers and that will help you out. Okay. So with that said, guys, I thank you all for joining in today. Have a great day ahead and goodbye.